Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is the virtual series. This is Universal Women's Network. My name is Monica Kretschmer, and I'm the founder and CEO. And today it is such a treat. We have our Leading Through Change, Leading with Resilience. And today we have three extraordinary women from across Canada today that are going to be sharing how they're navigating through COVID and how we can actually tap into that resilience mode to lead with grace and confidence, and really resilience takes us to a whole new level on how to cope through change. So I think it's a really important discussion today, and it is my absolute pleasure to be introducing Desiree Bombenon. Desiree is the CEO of Surecall Contact Centers in Calgary. I've known Desiree. She is a 2019 Woman of Inspiration Global Impact Award recipient. Desiree, you've got non-for-profit, you've got a list of board experience. You're involved in so many different organizations, helping and serving on their boards, but also helping and serving and supporting women along their journeys as far as mentorship. But you've also got the young girls in. So we'll get you to talk a little bit about your work, but thank you so much for joining us today. Karen Fonseth, you're calling in from Winnipeg. Now you're the CEO of DASCH. And DASCH is a non-for-profit, and I know we had a discussion, and I said, so tell me a little bit about DASCH, and you're the 1% most profitable, mark me if I'm wrong, charities in Canada.
In the 1% of largest charities in Canada.
Largest, yes. So, I mean, it's just extraordinary that, you can tap into the wisdom of an organization that is actually leading by example in the nonprofit space. So it's really exciting to have you here as well and drawing on your experiences. And next we have Karen Stewart. Karen Stewart is the CEO of Fairway Divorce Solutions and Bumblebee's Venture Capital. Karen, you and I have known each other for many years. I think 2007 was our very first conversation. Little did we know where our journey would take us over these years and how they would be weaved in, but it's so exciting to have you here. Of course, our similarities are divorce. Your divorce really impacted you because that's the reason or your purpose for building Fairway Divorce Solutions. So thank you for having us, for joining us here today, ladies. And I just want to jump right in and get started. So 2020 will be a year that we will never forget. When we started our year making goals and plans for the year, had you any idea what we are going to experience? I want to just say, I had a lot of goals coming into the year, but how did COVID actually impact some of those goals for you, Desiree?
Well, we run an essential service. So really how COVID impacted us was more around our clients and our customers. I was just as concerned about COVID as everybody else out there, especially because I have a suppressed immune system. So it was, how do I change my routine so that I can continue to work and be there for my team? But again, I thought of it as another crucible in many ways, right? I was never afraid that COVID was going to be the end of our business or that, businesses wouldn't work through COVID. I was absolutely confident that we would all be just fine. And I think that comes from going through a lot of challenges, right, in my journey just to get where I am right now. I kind of looked at it as another speed bump in life. And there are some things, obviously, that I've gone through that, to me, are worse than dealing with this pandemic right now. So my mindset is that this too shall pass. And from a business perspective, we just pivoted, what we needed to do to assist our customers to get through this, to stay strong as a team, and to manage coming out of it on the other side. We actually started to look for opportunities and started working on those in the last few weeks of how we could take COVID and turn it into something that was going to actually improve how we do our business and to be able to offer more services to our clients around because of the things that COVID has brought out for all businesses.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And Karen, how about yourself? How did those goals at the beginning of the year all of a sudden march 11th, boom, overnight, things changed. So how did that change for you?
Which Karen?
Oh, Karen Fonseth. I'm going to go clockwise.
There we go. Oh, well, drastically, I think, no different than anyone else, right? It just, I mean, if anybody would have, said to, I think, any of us, a couple months ago, just imagine a day when, every restaurant in North America is closed. Imagine a day in Canada where pretty much every Costco has a lineup to get food. I think we would have thought the person was having challenges and maybe needed to see a doctor. So, for us, it was, we had just finished a strat plan. We were just straight out of the gates on some wonderful new programming. We had just purchased a franchise to launch a brand new business, a very important business, and it was a large investment. And everyone's got these stories. Everyone's got these stories. So what I would say, it's not so much about the story. It was about just never let anything get ahead of you, right? So whenever something appears to be an obstacle, jump ahead of it, take control of it, because then there's no fear, right? So plan ahead. And when people were just talking about PPE and do we even need it, we were ordering from every corner of the earth to have it because we knew we're going to need it. So it was just and we're an essential service as well. We touch thousands of lives, and we have hundreds of clients in our homes that are immune compromised and vulnerable population as it was. So it was just about spend what you need to spend, get ahead of this thing, and keep planning in advance, get ahead of, even governments in terms of the planning. And so it's worked really well that way.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And there's a couple things I want to circle back with all of you as you're talking. We're going to go through and I'm going to ask you some questions a little bit deeper. Karen, how about yourself? I think your business, Fairway Divorce, kind of an essential business right now. Stampede, big changes. Like these are changes that stress relationships, right? Either it strengthens them or it does the opposite. So how has this impacted you and your goals?
So I think the goals haven't changed.
Mm-hmm.
The goals are what the goals have been, at the, the beginning of the year when we set out our goals for the year. What's happened, I think, is the way we've approached the timing of the goals. To take sort of a step back, I'm in the franchise world, so I'm a franchisor and I have franchises across Canada. And what's been very interesting to me is, I decided early on that I wanted to be as optimistic as possible and use this to do something that was going to impact our business on a go-forward basis. And so, using an opportunity, people are at home, they're not traveling as much. We've done a lot of, every week now we have a virtual get-together with all my franchises across Canada. That's not something we did before. So we've increased it's crazy, but we've actually increased our connectiveness across the country because of this. And so I think for me, goals haven't changed, timing has changed, taking advantage of this sort of new way of doing business and using that to springboard in some ways, hopefully the fall and the winter and 2021 in a way that's more connected. And I think that would be my big takeaway is how it's increased, crazy enough, our ability to connect with people across the country.
So one thing I have to share right out of the gate is that there is such a sense of calmness as you talk about how this massive change has impacted your businesses, and we'll get to your lives as well, but there's this steady calmness that each of you have maintained. And I think that's really due a large portion to the ability that you've had, where you all have had some really big challenges in your life. So I guess my question to you is do you think the challenges in your life and the road that you had to take to get to where you are enabled you to take on something like COVID with a different perspective? Desiree.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think, the truth is, none of us know what we're capable of until we are in those circumstances, right? I do believe that my scars are sort of a roadmap of lessons, and that each one has taught me at least one thing that has aided me in my decision making. I think probably also instilled a sense of courage that's allowed me to try things that maybe I wouldn't have tried. And I always think, what's the worst thing that can happen, right? When I go into a situation, even when you're thinking about COVID, what's the worst thing that can happen? So I think that prepares you, right? It prepares me to take sort of the fear out of not knowing. And then if we have that fear of not knowing and that's disappeared, we can forge through. So, I'm not sure if I would have achieved what I've achieved in my life without having those crucibles or, dealt with some of those challenges. But I know that because of it, I'm willing to, push through things that I normally wouldn't have with confidence.
Okay, interesting. And so what about yourself, Karen Fonseth? How do you, I have to say Karen Fonseth because we have Karen and Karen here today. So
many Karens.
So many Karens. So what was that path and how did this prepare you for what we're facing right now and leading onwards?
I think the more challenges you go through, although it doesn't feel like it during the time, it strengthens you. It strengthens your character. You also learn who you can lean on. So in times of crisis, right, you build a sense of strength, but you also build that network of people that that you can trust and you can lean on. And I look back to, and again, we all have our stories, but I don't know what one crisis was the biggest, but most recently, and we haven't even talked about that, Monica, I don't believe, but a number of years ago, I had a massive concussion that took me about 3 years to scrape back. And that's just one example. And again, it's getting ahead of the fear always is, and same as the fear of COVID. It's just get ahead of the fear, and the way you do it is plan and research and take control of your own health, take control of your own organization, take control of the situation around you. And it's so empowering. But as soon as you sit back and you wait for things to happen to you, that's when you lose control, and that's when things really slip and slide. So it's just about, I'm in charge of me, I'm in charge of the company, I'm in charge of whatever you need to be in charge of. And if you look at it that way, you can't fail.
That's powerful. I love how you said your support system, because when you do go into an area where it's adversity, you really only have, like, I call it the inner circle, right? You have like multiple layers of people in your lives, but when it comes down to crisis, you're really only dealing with a handful at most people in your world. So you really get to know who your true support system is, who your true followers are, and it ripples out, right? And then as you expand onto it, that becomes your support system moving forward. So I think right now is one of those times for everyone, is that look at the people that are around you, look at the people that are supporting you. Those will become the people that you will continue to do business with, support back, and grow. So that is so important. Thank you so much for bringing up that point. It's awesome.
Thanks.
Karen, how about yourself? How has your resilience enabled you to handle COVID-19?
Well, I think that the best way to answer that question is when you are a woman entrepreneur who's raised 3 children, who's built companies, who's sold companies, who's been through a divorce, who's had the massive up and downs. You know, I hate to say it, but this has been easy. And I know that sounds crazy because this is a very challenging time. But, you know, when I contrast this to the other things, like, you know, the other two ladies were talking about, this is, you know, this isn't that hard. But I've also learned, I think my biggest lesson in life is it's not what happens to you. It's how you approach what happens to you, how you process. What is your filter? And if you can master your personal filter of whatever happens in your life through a filter that is actually inspiring, is you embrace the lessons and you find optimism and you find the silver lining, then we can handle whatever comes our way, most of it.
And I love that because that is exactly one of my favorite quotes. Resilience is not what happens to you, it is what you do with what happens to you, which is so key in every situation. So I love and this is why I thought it was so important to have all 3 of you on this panel today talking about your experiences as a women leading organizations, leading businesses. You've got your hands very full, but it's like calm. You know, you're taking it and starting, just not to say that there might be days that are like roller coasters, because we all have them, but the general outlook is that, yeah, bring it on. There's opportunities everywhere. This is just a bump in the road and we'll get through it. And I think that's the most important message that we need to share with everybody that maybe hasn't experienced to the level of the adversities that we all have shared in our lives. Because I'm with you, Karen. This is I was like, okay, I'm tired and working hard, but this is easy compared to what I was faced with, really. And we have to be careful saying that because this is a tough time, right? And we're not done yet. So, and everybody's story is very different. I always say that some people have no life jacket, some people have an air mattress, some people have a dinghy, some people have a yacht. We're in the sea, but everybody's got a different way of floating. Right? So thank you for all of those tidbits. Now I want to talk, switch gears a little bit. I want to talk a little bit more about, you know, right now it's female entrepreneurs. We need to support the female entrepreneurs around us. The economy has been hit really super hard. So let's talk about some of the ways that we can all empower women in business. So, you know, there's opportunities, yes, but we need a support system like we talked about. So how have you been able to offer support to other women, Desiree, and what tips can you empower us all to sort of think about as we move forward to the new norm?
Right. So, you know, I do a lot of work with women's leadership. As you know, I, mentor several women. I'm belong to many, many organizations. I try to get out there as much as possible to work with and assist young females. I have a organization or a program that I put out called Mentor in a Miniskirt. And it's supposed to be sarcastic, but it is about mentoring young girls to help them navigate through the leadership process, right? Because there's so many variables, especially for women and especially for younger women, where they don't have that self-confidence or they're not provided that support within the teams that they have, in the organizations they work in. I truly believe that companies that, nurture teams will be the companies that are the most successful, and women do that so well, right? And there's an opportunity for that type of leadership, especially coming out of COVID, to shine right now. So there's companies right now looking for female board members. So one of the things I would ask females to do is work on your brand, right? Work on ensuring that you're getting your ideas out there, whether it's through blogs, podcasts, volunteering, get on charity and not-for-profit boards, right? People are always looking for help in those areas. This will get your name out and also give you an opportunity to show people what you can do. So be bold and be brave and get out there. And, you know, there's things like getting your board of directors certification as well. That things like that will help to sort of propel you through. But you really have to, I feel like women need to be more bold and be more aggressive in showing up for themselves at these opportunities. So, you know, those are some of the pearls I would put out there.
Lovely. And it's really, I agree with every single one of those statements. And that's why we have the Universal Women's Network is actually, we've built a platform so that women can be visible and connect with other like-minded women. So I check the box on all of those. And I think that, yes, building your brand, building your own personal brand, whether you're an entrepreneur and building your company or whether you are working for a company, building your personal brand and your leadership is so, so important, right? So yeah, great tip. Karen Fonseth, how about yourself?
Well, I completely agree with everything Desiree said, so I won't duplicate any of that because that's bang on. So maybe I'll just take it a step further, because some might say, but how do I do that? You know, how do I be bold? Because I'm a little shy, or it's really hard to speak up at a meeting. You know, so then, you know, you look at training opportunities, you find a strong woman, or you find I have many male mentors, right? I've got a couple female great friends that are mentors to me. But you know, male mentors are also really, really important. So again, it could be volunteering for an advisory committee and just, you know, getting that champion that helps you to get on it, right? Because no matter what, people still stick together in packs. It's very hard to be an unknown person that gets onto a board. It's still difficult. It happens, but it's very difficult. So, you know, to get to know somebody and call somebody up, just, you know, heard your name, you know, I'll get calls. I started that way. Heard your name, you're on, you know, the board of hydro, and just wondering how your career started. I have never had anyone say no to me when I was younger. And I have never said no to anybody else if they'd like to get a little bit of advice. And, you know, one of the best short stories I ever heard was a prof at Harvard said that he had one of his students come to him and said, you know, none of this is working, right? I want to get on a board. I want to do this. You know, I came here, I got my education, I got my MBA at that point. And he was one of these, you know, older guys that have been teaching forever. He was early 80s, well respected. And he said, did you do your business plan? So your own personal business plan with your own personal agenda, which was, you know, your 1-year goals, your 3-year goals, your 5-year goals. And then with it, how were you going to get there? Like literally your own strat plan. And so, and this professor had taught it. So he was telling our class. So he said to me, no. And he said, there's your homework. Don't talk to me until you finish it. So then the person came back to him and said, okay, I've finished it, you know, sir. And the professor said, he folded it back up, he opened his jacket, put it inside, he's like, go execute. So the moral of that story, because it was taught in a class, is that we all work to our calendars and to timelines, but we never set goals for ourselves that are written down with measurable delivery. So as soon as you do that, and you know, I was made to do it for myself, it's really interesting when it's written down and you have to achieve it. So I found that to be a really successful way of achieving these goals, just because they're step by step. They're 3-month goals, 6-month goals, 9-month goals. So I found that's one of the ways to achieve what some of the goals that Desiree suggested need to be done.
Amazing. Love a couple things. First, I want to start with the warm intros. The warm introductions are absolutely gold. And I talk about this all the time, that you do need to have somebody in your corner that's a champion for you, to open that door, that believes in what you're doing and that wants you to succeed. And that warm intro is just a connection of their credibility to your credibility. And so if Karen were to say, Monica, there's somebody that I'd love you to meet, oh, Karen or Desiree, there's somebody that I'd like you to meet, I'd be instantly open to and making sure that I represent you well by contacting them right away, by following up, seeing what I can do to help and support them, because my relationship is with each of you, but you obviously have a relationship with them and you've trusted me. So I think that is really, really key, something that we need to talk more about, but you know, it doesn't cost any money.
Right.
It might be a quick email, but it means the world and it opens up the door. And I know that you've done that for me, Karen. So thank you for that. Both of you.
My pleasure.
Yes. So that's fantastic. So that was one. The second one that you touched on was the support systems. And yes, we cannot forget about the men that support her, because in 2018, as you know, I launched Support Her, the men that empower women, how we need more men to speak up, or they want to be heard. They just need the opportunity to participate. So that is super, super key. I don't see that going away. And we're going to push forward with making that more visible, because I'm always contacted by men going, how can we help support women? We want to help them get into leadership roles. I want to move them into roles so that I can exit the business. I get that all the time. So love those two real key points. And the last one was about executing the plan. So great tidbits. Love, love, love. Karen, the hard part being on the end of, you know, somebody waiting to speak is that you have time to speak, but then there's so many great things to talk about. And I know you're never at a shortage for ideas. So how would you suggest helping and supporting women?
Well, first of all, I would say, you know, Desiree and Karen nailed so many different things. So again, I'm not going to be redundant. Just a couple of key things for me. I personally believe that knowledge is power. And I think that as a female, it is still not an even playing field. It just isn't. And so we have to empower ourselves through knowledge. And that does go with personal brand. What is going to be your area of expertise? And how are you going to bring that to the world? And that does wrap around brand. I think the other thing is, just to add on to what Karen was saying, I'm a strong believer in a very, very clear vision. And I think really, really take the time to focus on what is your vision. Have a 3-year vision, 5-year vision, 10-year vision, put it in writing. You know, I have a slideshow, a PowerPoint, where I actually have a ongoing slideshow of my vision. And when I go back and look at the ones that I have done over the last 20 years, within about a very small percentage, I've accomplished everything I set out to accomplish. And I think the key is when you're doing these kind of vision boards, is you don't get caught up in how you're going to do it. You put it out there, you get really clear on that is what your vision is. You can reverse engineer it and then become a absolute expert knowledge on whatever it is you want to be known as, or what's going to help you manifest your vision.
Wonderful. I don't know if you've seen my dining room window, but for 4 years, it was covered with sticky notes. And at the 4-year mark, I'm like, you know, I really have to just revisit that again and actually really revisit. And I'm like, accomplish. And I went through and I realized that I'd accomplished everything that I set out to do. So I started over again. Right? So I like the idea of the PowerPoint though, because the sticky notes, they take up a lot of room. I love sticky parties, by the way. That's a great way of sort of brain dumping and getting your ideas out. But what valuable information. I'm feeling a workshop coming up, actually. What I'd love to do is build a workshop to sort of surround some of these concepts and ideas. So, you know, by all means, if you're listening and you think that's of interest to you, definitely let me know and enter it in the chat box there, because I'll give it some more thought and put a time frame around that. But thank you, Karen, for sharing, because I think something that you also touched on, which is really important, is knowledge. And that actually gets me into the next question that I'd love to chat about, is knowledge. You know, Desiree, you've got your a lot of education behind you. You're working on another tell me a little bit more about what you're working on right now, but you have a Harvard degree. Karen Fonseth, you've just got your Harvard degree. So I'll get you to talk about your journey. And number one, your journey in education, but also timing of that, right, is really key, because we could want everything right now, but is there a time to do it? Should you wait, or should you just jump in? So Desiree, maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think sometimes timing is just a matter of circumstances as well, right? Because, you know, I would have loved to have had my degree many, many years ago, but it wasn't going to happen based on the circumstances that I was in. So, you know, I was a single mom at a very young age, a single mom at 21 with 2 kids. And so a lot of things had to get put off. I was working, you know, 2 or 3 jobs at one time just to be able to, you know, feed my kids and get through school and do all of that stuff. So not until 2016, did I end up at Harvard. And that was specifically through an invitation, believe it or not. And my program that I went through at Harvard was actually, after my business degree, was the Advanced Leadership Initiative. And the ALI program is a program where they gather people from around the world. So you have to be invited. They invite people from all over the world to get together to work on critical humanitarian issues around the globe. So I chose SDG number 5, which of course is gender equality. And I produced a program coming out of Harvard called Hero Girls. And now I am in my 2nd year of educating young girls who are in underdeveloped or underserved communities around the world. So in 2019, I put through 107 girls in a village in Nepal through my Hero Girls program, which is a self-empowerment program for females. And in Dang, they are the lowest caste system with regards to how females are treated. And they're normally, you know, sold off as slave labor by the time they're 10 years old. So we had 107 girls go through the program. I put out 75 scholarships for those girls. We launched 30 innovation programs in that village with those girls. And then I also supported a mothers group and had over 30 mothers where we invested microloan funding to them so that they could start businesses in their villages. So that's what I've done with my education right now.
So where do you find the time to work? Like,
you know what?
Like,
I have a super good team.
That's the $1 million question, is timing. You know, are you in the place that you are in your business or organization to be able to do that? Or do you have a large team of help that you're able to do?
Our team runs, we have about 100 people, and our team runs with at a flat organization, in a flat organization. So we have like 10 people. Supporting that entire team. And it's just an amazing, amazing culture that we've built here. And I'm super happy with my team and really grateful that I have a team that allows me to do this, but they all buy into this, right? Because it's part of my business. I'm a social enterprise. So the team is working towards these goals that I have. So they all know about the Hero Girls program. We have a Good Call program that, you know, offers all kinds of charities. We do work nationally, internationally, and locally. And my team is part of that. So there's the buy-in, and they love it.
Amazing. What great innovative ways of giving back and doing something that's of purpose and meaning. So thank you very much. That's amazing, shared, Desiree. Karen, how about yourself? I know that you've got quite the entrepreneurial journey as far as like an educational journey. So how is that for you, that journey?
Interesting. I can say there is never a right time. I remember the night I was supposed to fly out to Harvard. Well, I was flying out the very next morning, and oh gosh, my kids must have been 10 and 12-ish. And I was sitting, I had my bags packed, and I, had to leave for a long period of time. And I sat on the sofa and I cried. I just sobbed and thought, don't want to go. I don't want to go. Why did I apply? What was I thinking? What was I thinking? I didn't think I'd get accepted. What was I thinking? And, at that point, being completely honest, if I could have got a refund, I wouldn't have gone. But it was non-refundable and it was really expensive. So it's, but at that point, I wanted to go back to school. I thought the timing was right because as my daughters were getting older, you don't want to leave teenagers, but there's never really a right time. You can't really plan anything. Can you plan, is there a good time to change jobs? If some headhunter calls you, no. So it was really, furthering my education was about really my mentors pushing me. You need to get your ICD designation, right, for boards. I mean, it's hard enough for women. It was the advice I was given. It's hard enough for women. So you can, dot all the I's and cross all the T's, but you got to be better. And, this is going back years. Do I think it's still the same today? I don't know, because I'm past that. But it was all about, you have to be better than everyone else sitting at the table. And if that means credentials, then you have to get the credentials. So, that's where I always wanted to go to the next level. That was the timing for me, whether it was convenient or not. Did it make a difference? Yes, it absolutely did. Credentials always make a difference. And yes, so it's made a difference for me on boards. It's made a difference for me on getting on, significant boards. I mean, for those of, that are listening from Canada, one of the boards I always wanted to sit on, I'm a huge football fan. And, so just this past year, I was elected and appointed to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, right, which are the CFL champions of the last year. So tough time to get appointed. And, it's a male sport. Some women like it. So those sorts of things take a really long time. So again, yes, I'd always encourage education, and I'd say there's never a right time, but just do it in bits and bites. Do it in a chunk if you have time to do it in a chunk, and sometimes just apply expecting not to get accepted, and then you get accepted and you just have to go for it.
So take the leap of faith.
Yes.
So I have to ask you, so that moment, and I think that, it's about timing, it's about opportunity, it's being able, I mean, those courses are not inexpensive. You have to have the resources in order to do that. So that's barrier one. Everything's achievable. But how did you were worried about your kids and leaving your kids? Was that more you, or was that them? Coming back to them, did you have a conversation with them and go, what was their perception of like mom coming back, and now you've achieved this great accomplishment, and were they proud, or were they missing you, or did you have a conversation with them about that?
I talked to them before, so it was more me, because I was single mom since they were really young, 2 and 3, or no, first time like officially single from 9 months and about 2 years of age. I mean, that was sort of the first time, and then divorced after that. So we had a super special relationship, and I had always been there. Parenting came first. I have an incredible bond with my kids, so it was how do I leave them? How do I not help them with homework? How am I not there every night when they come bouncing in the door? That was a huge sacrifice, and and they had to understand that I couldn't help them with homework, with, the amount of work to do something like that at Harvard. You can't be FaceTiming and doing homework because there's no time. You're doing your own. But to this day, they still, if somebody hears that your mom went to Harvard, yeah, they brag about it. They pull up pictures of my graduation. So it's one of their highlights, and I'm really proud of it.
I love that you were able to say, I am so proud about it, but I was actually a little nervous about jumping in and just starting. I think that's such a clear message for people, because there's that fear. but we have to learn to embrace the fears,
Mhm.
right? Just dive in and do it because we are strong enough. We can get through anything.
Yes. Yes, even if you're shaking while you're walking through those huge gates and you don't know anybody and you're moving into your living group and you don't know a soul, you don't know where you're going. And, these universities in the States, and, I can't really speak for the larger ones in Canada, but these well-known institutions in the United States are built to be intimidating. I mean, just when you get out of that taxi, you are already intimidated. You're done. So, but it was a great experience.
Amazing. Well, thank you for sharing, because I think it's really, as at a time right now when people are like, so what's my next move? What do I need to do to pivot? How can I, open up a new door to an opportunity? Education is definitely something that people are taking lessons or thinking about their next, right?
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing. Karen, again, you're constantly learning and growing. So maybe just share a little bit about your education journey.
So I think, it's interesting because I think education is a choice like everything else in the world. And I think it's very much a value system decision. One of the things I would encourage everybody to do is really take the time, whether you hire someone to help you with this, whether you read about it, whether you learn about it, is really understand what your personal values are. Because there's so many demands on our time when especially if you're a business owner, you're a mother, you're a spouse, you're a daughter, you're a sister, you're a friend, you're a boss, and all these things want a piece of us. But if you can be really clear about what your own personal value system is, then you can live according to that. For me, my number one value in my entire life is learning. That is my number one value. So when I go back to my early ages, I put a very high value on my education. I came out of high school. At 17, I did my 2 undergraduate degrees. Then I did a master's of business and my MBA. Then I started a stockbroking firm. I was one of the first women in Canada to own a fully owned by female stockbroking firm. I had probably 15 designations for that. I was an options trader, office partner and director for securities commissions. I was I had my CFP, I was a stockbroker, you name it. It was just a massive amount of education. And then I was kind of done that journey, and I left to another area, which was Fairway. And then I took for, probably 5 to 10 years in becoming a chartered mediator. So I accomplished that designation. That's the highest mediation designation you can get in Canada. And then from there, I continued my education. I've always had a personal coach. I've always worked with a coach who pushes me and tells me when I'm off of my targets. And then like the other 2 ladies mentioned, the ICD.D, I did that. And what I would say is that's a lot of freaking money when I think back. And I was thinking about, oh my God, I spent a lot of money. But for me, that's my value. I would rather spend my money on, signing up to the masterclass, which I would encourage you all to do. It's not expensive, and you can find so much inspiration from so many great leaders on the masterclass. I'm doing one right now in interior design. I don't know anything about it, but it's a great way to learn. And so I think, and as far as what has that done to my career, I think the most thing it's done, yes, it's opened doors and doors and doors and doors, but I think most importantly, it's given me confidence.
That was almost like a drop the mic. It's just given me confidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's so powerful that confidence is probably one of the top barriers for us to move forward, and is just to ask and have the courage to do it, right? So fabulous. Oh my God, I'm so excited. I don't know if anybody's commenting on that, but if you have some questions for this panel, I would invite you to pop them into the question box. We may not get the opportunity to answer them today, but I would go in the green room and make sure that I ask those questions and get back to you with that. So, Fantastic conversation. I'm so grateful to each and every one of you for providing your insights and for leading by example in everything that you're doing, championing for women and raising the bar to build strong leaders around you. And that's exactly what we do. So I just want to sort of leave. We've got probably another 5 minutes or so. I would just like to touch base on sort of what have you learned during COVID? What are you hoping to carry forward, Desiree, into this new normal? How are you planning to move forward?
Yeah, so I'm not sure I consider it the new normal. I consider it the new now, because I think normal for me gives me a false sense that what we were doing before was the right way to do things. And, I've seen so much good come out of COVID. For example, how we think about our teams, how we treat our people, how we value the safety and security of our people. And also, how we should be offering a more balanced lifestyle for our teams. So, there's lots of great things I think that are coming out of this. If you have to go through a pandemic, I guess you want to look at what are the opportunities. What really it's done globally has been, unintentionally exceptional. It's bringing out all these social inequities and inadequacies actually of society. And, I'm really hoping the governments are learning something from this, including, the environment, blue skies over China, the leatherback turtle coming back, the Ganges River running clear. There's so many great things that I just what I've learned is I don't want to go back to doing things the way we were doing things. So many great lessons. The one thing that I think I want to leave with is that a thought about avoiding post-pandemic drift. And what I mean by that is when you've been working in crisis mode for so long, and I think some of us know what that's like, after it's done, you kind of, everybody goes into this malaise. I think we have to make sure that, we have some kind of post-pandemic rehabilitation plan, for our teams, for our society, for our community, and be ready for what's next. I think that's really super important. I think we have to remember everyone is experiencing the effects of this pandemic at the same time. So we're all in this together. What you're facing, your competition is facing, your colleagues are facing, your team is facing. So during a crisis of this magnitude, I think you throw your KPIs out the door and you lead with love. So I think if there's the one big lesson that I've learned is lead with love and everything else will fall in place for your team.
Great nuggets. And I like that thinking about the now, it's like being present. Right? And I love the energy that each of you shared about there's so much opportunity that, this was it's a horrible thing that has happened, but look at all the blessings that is coming through. So thank you so much for sharing your insights, Desiree. Really great way of ending it off. Karen, how about yourself? Karen Fonseth.
Yes, I was thinking, one thing that I've certainly learned and we've learned here as a team is that, even though we thought we were communicating, we didn't know what communication was, right? So through technology and through what we've had to do to communicate with, thousands of people when you include families and stakeholders and everyone that's involved in the organization. Communication is not sending out a few bulletins and maybe having a town hall here and there. So we've learned what communication is. We've learned what teamwork is and chatting with people and, solving problems with, 55 people on a screen, right? And how much easier it is through virtual communication. We've talked a lot more about caring about each other, right? And we start meetings off with, how everyone is, and we're less formal, right? A lot less formal in our meeting settings. And we've talked a lot about, we've found who the true leaders are, right? Who leaders are popping up everywhere. And so I see it as a huge opportunity for people everywhere to come up smelling like roses and show that you're a true leader, because people out there are watching, right? Watching who's doing a great job, who's leading, who is not fearful, who's not asking the silly questions and is just guiding. And final thought, there are so many opportunities. I mean, it's never waste a good crisis. And and I hate to even say it that way, but there's so many. The world is not going to go, business is not going to go back to the way it was, right? You look at technology, right now, you look at how our children are changing through what's happened in the schools, and some of the fears that are out there. Things are not going to go back to the way they were. So what opportunities are there for new businesses and new, female entrepreneurs, or any entrepreneur, to take a look at what's needed out there? What is needed out there for the new world? And then brainstorm with some girlfriends and start it up. You can start it in your garage, start it in the basement, whatever that looks like. There's a lot of gaps in the world right now that are going to present themselves. So there's a huge opportunity right now to be creative and be very successful. Just open your mind up.
Thank you so much for that. And I love, it's just about being creative. You have to just, allow yourself some quiet time, I find, whether that's the walk or whether that's in the shower, wherever that is, just let those ideas filter through and write them down. I can't remember how many times I remember, and I don't know if you all have that same, but you have this bolt of a thought, and it's just like so strong. And then you're like, if you didn't write it down, it's like, where did that go? If it wasn't strong enough, it doesn't stick. So I always write them down. And so I think that's probably the first step is, pay attention to the thoughts around you and write them down, whether they make sense or not, because that could be a message for you of something that you do need to do if it's in alignment with your values. So very cool. Thank you for sharing. And Karen, what about yourself, Karen Stewart?
So first of all, I just want to pick up the two what I thought were really key things that Desiree and Karen said. One, the whole thing about love and lead with love. And I think that's key. I think the other one is the silver lining, and how do we go forward and take the lessons from this. And then I'm going to be a little bit of a rogue here and say my biggest takeaway from this entire thing I have become very concerned about how we are absolutely massively manipulated by the media. And so I don't know where that's going to take me in my journey. But it is inspiring me at a level, when I look at the companies that I've started, many of them have been inspired at a very soul level for me. I'm a disruptor by nature. I look at an industry that I feel is completely outdated or needs to be disrupted, whether it was the stockbroking industry or the venture capital industry or the divorce industry. And I go into this place where I'm inspired, and I can tell you, I'm concerned that we are being manipulated, we're puppets, and we're not being recognized for the individual intelligence that we have. So I'm just going to leave you with that, because I know that's a bit rogue, but I don't, and like I said, I don't know where it's going to take me, but it will take me somewhere in the next 10 years.
Love, and we're right behind you to support you on that, I have to say. And I know that if Karen Stewart is saying that she's going to do something, it's already done. It's out there, Karen.
Maybe I got too much to do right now, but maybe in the next 10 years.
It's somewhere. And I agree with like it happens so quickly. That's a whole other conversation for another time that I hope we will have the opportunity to talk about. But I do agree with you, Karen. So thank you for being you know, that other perspective that is not all the rosy. It's like, let's see what we can do to make some change in a possible light there. So 12 o'clock, this whole series has gone way too fast. It has been an absolute pleasure to have the opportunity to spend this time with each and every one of you. I am reading the comments in here, and they're thank you for the wonderful wisdom. You know, I'm going to send a survey back just to find out what was most impactful. And I know that as I host each and every event, I'm always inspired by all the women that we bring together. Strategically, I brought you three together because I knew that you're at the top of your games. I knew that you each have an incredible story of resilience, and I wanted you all to be connected. And just that power of connecting women is super, super incredible. So thank you so much for joining us, everyone. We are going to go to the green room with our panels, but I would welcome you to check out, wait for the link, fill out the survey, please. And we'd love to hear your comments and feedback about our panel today, and wait for our announcement for our Success Summit, because we'll be tuned to announce that actually today. We're making the big announcement about a Success Summit to help and support female entrepreneurs June 10th and 11th. So we're going to take that to the next level. So thank you, everyone. I'm just going to exit the room, turn off our recording, and we'll head over to the green room.